If you've ever felt intimidated to make an apple tart, I'm here to show you how you can make these gorgeous apple tart roses. Not only are they visually impressive, but they're made gluten-free with clean ingredients, including oat and almond flour and butter and apples. And to take them to another level in deliciousness, they have an almond butter caramel sauce that perfectly pairs with the apples and cinnamon. The simple crust is easily pressed into muffin cups, so there's no chilling or rolling of dough required. And they bake to golden perfection in less than 20 minutes. This recipe can also be made in a traditional tart pan with the apple slices arranged in a circular pattern. We're going to start by preparing our apples, and you can use any variety that you like. The red delicious apples will give you the most color in the peel that will most closely resemble red roses. So you will need either 5 small apples or 4 large apples. And to get those delicate rose petals, you'll need to slice your apples very thin. And I have found this is easiest using a mandoline slicer. And if you have one of these apple cores, you can start by simply poking this down over the stem and pushing down into your apple. And then making sure it comes through the other side. And then just simply pull it out, open the clamp, and out comes your core. Now you could also just cut your apple in half, and then using a knife or even a measuring spoon, you can go ahead and scrape out the center core, as well as the stem on the top and the bottom. And then once you've cored your apples, you can either slice them by hand, very patiently, and cutting them as thin as you can. That is so pretty. And then as soon as they're sliced, you'll want to get them into a bowl of water. And then we're just going to add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice into about 6 cups of water. And then we'll just drop our sliced apples right inside. Now, a quicker method for slicing your apples is using a mandoline slicer. And this one is my favorite because it has this adjustable dial so that I don't have to have separate plates that you move in and out. So I'm just going to go ahead and set my thickness nice and thin. And then I'm going to put on the very fashionable glove that will also protect fingers. And then if you're slicing only a half at a time, you'll want to first give yourself a flat edge on the bottom. And then you can simply take it by hand and just quickly run it along your slider. With one of our whole apples, you can go ahead and just cut a flat bottom and then place it on our slicer. And then it does come with this handle with some little spikes on the bottom, so I can go ahead and poke that into my apple and slice away. Then let's take our stacks of apple and cut them in half and then add them to our lemon water. Now, in order to roll our apple halves into the roses, they have to be flexible. And if we tried rolling just the raw apples, you can see that they would snap. So there's 2 really quick and easy methods for softening your apples. You could bring a pot of water to a boil with some of the lemon in it, drop in your apple slices and let them boil for about a minute. Or you can just take this bowl and put it right into the microwave and then microwave it in 1-minute increments for about 2, maybe 3 minutes, and then your apples will be nice and soft. You just want them to be tender enough so that when you roll them, they don't snap in half. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these in my microwave. I microwaved my apples in 4 1-minute increments, stirring in between, waiting until the apples were just soft enough. Now the thickness of your apples will determine how long they need in the microwave. Now I'm just gonna take this over to my sink and drain off the water. And then I'll just spread the apples out on a paper towel so they can continue to drain. And then we'll set this aside while we make our crust. You can mix your crust by hand with just a spatula and a bowl, or you can use a hand mixer. I'm gonna go ahead and just use my food processor. I'm gonna start with 1½ cups of oat flour. You can easily make your own oat flour by taking old-fashioned or quick oats and then just blending them in a blender or a NutriBullet for less than a minute. Next, we'll add 1/2 cup of almond flour, 1/4 cup of coconut sugar, 1/4 teaspoon salt, and then I'm just gonna pulse this a couple times to mix our dry ingredients. Now for our wet ingredients, we're going to add 1/4 cup of melted coconut oil, 1/4 cup of maple syrup, 1 teaspoon vanilla, 1 teaspoon apple cider vinegar, or you can also use lemon juice. And I almost forgot to add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1/2 teaspoon nutmeg. And then we'll just mix these together until well combined. And then we'll know it's done when it starts to form this large ball. And then you can test its doneness by just pulling out a little handful and seeing how sticky it is. If it sticks to your fingers like this, then we need to add just a little bit more flour. I'm gonna add a heaping tablespoon of oat flour and then mix it again. There we go. And I can roll some of it in the palm of my hand to form a little dough ball, so now we know it's ready. Now you can bake your apple tart roses in either a metal muffin pan or a silicone muffin pan. I'm going to go ahead and use my silicone pan just because they're super easy to pop out. You'll want to start by lightly spraying your muffin cups, and I'm just using some coconut oil. And then to make it a little bit easier to scoop out the dough, I'm just going to use my medium-sized cookie scoop. So I'll go ahead and just drop a scoop right into my cup. And then just taking my fingers, I'll lightly spread it out inside the cup. And I want to press it in so that it raises up on the sides about 1/4 inch. If you find that it's still a little bit tacky on your fingers, you can go ahead and just spray a little bit of your nonstick onto your fingertips and then press in your dough. And then to make this really simple almond butter caramel sauce, we're going to start with 1/4 cup of almond butter. And then we'll add 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. And then add 1 tablespoon of coconut oil and 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1/4 teaspoon salt. And then go ahead and just take a fork and you'll mix those together. And what I really love about this sauce is that it doesn't require any heating or melting or caramelizing. And then you get this yummy caramel-like consistency without having to cook anything over the stove. And then we're just going to take a spoon and drop a generous teaspoon into the center of our crust. And if you do have any leftover caramel sauce, I recommend putting it into a little airtight jar and saving this for later. Now we get to create our beautiful apple roses. So we'll just take our nice soft apples and we're going to start laying them in a row. We're going to start on the left and then start overlapping them on top as we go to the right. And you want to overlap them about 1/2 of an apple width. And if you have any larger slices, you'll want to include those on the end. And then you're going to simply start on the left-hand side and then just begin rolling your rows. You'll just be careful to hold on to all your little pieces. And then when you get to the end, just lift up your rows and then come over to your muffin tray and then just poke your rows down inside to that caramel sauce. And then you can gently open up your petals to create this beautiful rose shape. It's amazing how something so simple can create such a beautiful thing. As I was rolling that apple, you could see there's a little bit moisture that built up onto my cutting board. So I'm just going to add a little strip of paper towel to roll the rest of our roses. This is where you'll appreciate that we softened those apples first so that they're nice and flexible. And that caramel sauce kind of acts like a glue that we can stick the roses down in. If only growing real roses that look this beautiful was this easy. Well, it took a little bit of patience to create all those roses, but I think it was definitely worth it. Now before these go into the oven, we're going to add a little more sweetness and some flavor. So I'm just going to pour a little bit of maple syrup into this measuring cup. And then I'm going to take a brush and then we're going to simply brush on some maple syrup onto each of our roses. And we can just be very gentle and get some of that syrup down in between those petals. And for some additional flavor, we're also going to sprinkle on a little bit of cinnamon. So I'm just going to take my container and very lightly just do a dusting of cinnamon over each of the roses. This is going to taste so good. Now our roses are ready to go into a 350-degree oven for 18 to 20 minutes. These baked in the oven for 20 minutes and then I allowed them to cool on my counter for about 10 minutes. And what I love about using these silicone muffin molds is that you can so easily just pop your muffin right out of the cup. Oh, that looks so cute. It's like a little rose inside of a little flower pot. Now I'll go ahead and cut this in half so you can see kind of a cross section of it. Oh my goodness, that smells so good. And it's still nice and warm. I feel bad cutting into it, but I'm more excited to try it. That is delicious. As soon as I bite in, I get that hint of cinnamon and nutmeg, and then I get the sweetness that comes in through that caramel sauce, and then I get the texture and the delicious natural sweetness of the apples, and then the nuttiness that comes in from that crust from the oats and a little bit of almond flour just kind of wraps it all together. That has the perfect amount of sweetness that isn't overpowered by processed white sugar, but has all the delicious natural flavors that come from the maple syrup and the apples and the almonds that are so much more interesting and definitely satisfying. I love creating beautiful, nutrient-dense food that is full of delicious flavor that I know all of my guests will love, but most importantly, I know they're going to feel good after they eat it. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today to make these fun and delicious apple tart roses. I've included a link in the video description below to the full recipe that's on my website, gentletummy.com. And I also invite you to like and subscribe to my channel. And if you know someone else who you think would love to have a delicious apple tart recipe, please share this video with them. And I cannot wait to have you hang out with me again in my kitchen next time.